Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Wild Church in April. Of the Wild Church services that I've done in the last year or so, not quite a year, I guess. I think this is maybe the 8th or the 9th. I think 2/3 of them have been rained out. And I thought today looks like it might be the same scenario. So I've been thinking about, what does that mean? The rain comes down and cleanses the earth, cleanses us. Is there an important message that nature and the earth have at least been trying to speak to me through this season? So we're gathered in this sacred location. We are honored to gather upon the unceded territory of the Tishat and the Hupkasut, who for thousands of years and to this day have sought to walk gently on this land. They have sought to care for it, to steward it, to have earth keepers and water keepers and spirit keepers, to give attention to the needs of the earth and what resources have been used in the most recent time. So we seek a new relationship with First Peoples of this land based on one that is based in honor and respect. So this week we celebrated Earth Day on the 22nd. I think it's the 50th anniversary of the celebration of Earth Day. But we know that while we mark this one day and in the midst of spring blossoming and to care for the earth, to pay attention and give attention to the areas of the earth which are under threat, experiencing crisis, we know that every day is Earth Day. Earth is this great biosphere which sustains life moment to moment, providing oxygen and nourishment. We are woven into the earth, into its web. Even though we may sometimes be tempted to view ourselves as separate from it, we are woven and interconnected in this web. And I think in this season and this crisis, that the time that we're living through with COVID-19 and needing to live differently for a time, to disconnect from our normal and typical ways of connecting with one another, and maybe even the ways in which we've connected with the earth. We've been reminded of what it's like to live in a time of crisis, to need to lean into our creativity, to seek wholeness and connection and safety and protect one another, to serve one another. We've let go of our traditional ways, I guess, in which we connect with one another in service of one another, in service of the most vulnerable. And I think that the earth has been in crisis for a long time. We have been hearing this. We know it to be true. And I wonder what the earth might speak to us this day. At least one of my questions is, given this crisis, given what we're learning and doing and being, how then shall we live? The earth is the place where we learn our most fundamental prayers. Hear the call of the wild rising at dawn, that dawn that awakens us to a new day, and it has specific sounds and calls, and we know that there's more oxygen in the air. That dawn, that break when everything is waking up, and there's a primal liturgy of praise that we can hear at dawn. Just as there's a primal kind of liturgy of settling in the evening, right? And in dawn, there's this praise that rises up all the time. Everything in creation becomes here as a catalyst for our deep self-understanding and understanding of creation and how the forest and the waters all work together, how they're this one big ecological network of connections. And when one of those connections is broken, it impacts the whole web. Think of that the forest asks me to embrace my truth once again as I stand here on the ground, as I look up to the trees, as you even wonder where I am. And I wonder where you'll be when we worship together virtually. The hummingbird. Think of the hummingbird. What's its invitation? To taste the holy nectar. The eagle. What's its invitation? To spread our wings, our mighty strong wings, to fly and to soar, to find and care for its the young ones. But it's to remember perhaps our strength. And the sparrow. Maybe the sparrow reminds us to care for and remember our flock. And each pine cone or hemlock cone or whatever kind of tree you happen to be around, it's an epiphany what's going on in that cone. There were a whole bunch here, hemlock ones today. There's lots going on in this cone, and it invites me to pay attention. Think of the watch and the witness of the sun as it slowly makes its way across the sky in that long arc, seemingly. And that the arc and that sun and how we interact with us. And just the brilliance of the sunlight and the warmth of it at one point in the day. And then at another point, we feel the darkness, the stillness as it goes and sets down. And the moon sings to us of quiet miracles, does it not? We look up into the moon and we see faces and craters and mice and cheese and men and people. Think of all of the ways in which the moon has inspired creativity over time. I crave a wide sea, like that, the sea of the ocean that is wide. I crave it when it has that gentle roll. I love it when when there's that crashing of waves and you're on a boat and you're going up and down. And yet, I crave the wide sea of wordless moments. Wordless moments of wonder where the silence, that sound of silence, speaks to me. When I hear that, almost the shimmering in the soundlessness, and I give attention to the voice of the one who whispers in stillness, whose singing vibrates in stones. Every day is Earth Day. Let us pray. God, creator, source of life, energy, universal love, we give thanks for the signs of spring. Greening trees and blooming flowers, singing robins or flowing streams. O Creator, we give thanks and praise. We often see those signs through our windows or walking alone. We notice that the earth has some rest from human activity. And even while we worry and struggle, O Creator, we learn in the midst of our concerns. We grieve the state of life and loss on the earth, land, water, and air. In the strange time of COVID-19, we hear of the earth healing herself. We hear the wind coming as we praise Him. O Creator, with humble hearts as students ready to learn, we listen to our teachers, the towering cedars, hemlocks, alders, maples. Whether a tree is close to where you are or where you're gazing out your window or what's behind your computer screen. This year we have seen, oh God, how swiftly humans can adapt. Give us eyes to see wisdom that is in this moment. Give us the courage to change our ways forever, to live responsibly and to advocate boldly, to honor and protect what you have created. O Creator, with your help, we will change our ways. Through the love of the Spirit of life with Jesus the Christ, our guide. Amen. So again, welcome to this space. I'm not sure right now until I listen to the recording whether you can hear my voice over the running waters behind me, the wind that is just picking up and moving through the branches of these trees, and as I anticipate, that the rain will arrive momentarily. Nature reminds us of the messiness and beauty of things. Where I stand, my iPad sits on a tree stump that is decaying. My guess is that it's a cedar. And around it are trees of different ages and sizes. And there's this ecological system that's here, and sometimes it looks messy. Nature says that when we let ourselves get messy and play in the dirt, profound things can happen. So I want to speak for a moment about contemplation and contemplative practice. For it's our tradition at Wild Church that Wild Church in and of itself is a contemplative practice. We gather here, someplace in the forest or the woods or by the water, and we listen. We give our full attention to the sights and sounds and smells that are around us. We give attention to this moment. It doesn't mean that we slow down necessarily, particularly, although sometimes that is what happens when we focus on giving attention to the present moment. Often the pace within us does slow down. But really, contemplative practice is about setting an intention to allow our hearts and minds and bodies and souls to be present here in this moment. We nurture the capacity to see the holy, active, right here, right now. We discover that the kingdom is among us now, and we live as if it is true. This is my hope, that as we ground ourselves in the first great cathedral, God's earth monastery, we will be in touch with the hope that is deep within the core of our being, much like we say that there's a divine spark in each of us. There's a divine spark in all of creation. And there are moments when we're in touch with that. And that spark is full of hope and peace and love and generosity, all those qualities that we ascribe to the holy. COVID-19 has reminded us of something many, but not all, have forgotten. We are living in a world that Christina Waltner's painter calls an age of forgetting. We have forgotten who we are in relationship to everything else, the creatures, the plants, the mountains, the forests, the oceans, one another, and even ourselves. One of the fruits of contemplative practice is the remembrance of our wholeness. We rediscover the truth that we are one in creation. We are connected. The mantra of our time is, we're all in this together. As we journey through this time of COVID-19, we keep repeating what we know to be true always, and it's our full experience right now, that we're in this together. In the midst of crisis, we'll only get through it together. We are in this together. There's a deep sense of kindness in there, a yearning for kindness, or maybe a kindness that has risen up and is showing itself in many different ways. And there's also a profound yearning for connection. For as our normal ways of connecting have been disrupted or turned upside down, we also notice our yearning that we are wired for connection as human beings. And so the capacity for creativity continues to bubble up in us like it hasn't done maybe for a long, long time. And there's this flowing of creativity, both the creativity that's part of looking and seeking and finding solutions to these big problems, but also that creativity, that capacity that flows out of us because we want to connect. I want to connect to this tree, perhaps, right? And to the people who would normally be gathered around me in a Wild Church. At the heart of the Christian tradition is the belief in our incarnation. God becoming flesh, becoming human. God did not become flesh only for one time. God was flesh, yes, in Jesus, in the human being. But Jesus teaches us that the divine presence is in all created things and has been at work in creation since the beginning of time and will continue. God's inhabiting of the material world is as earthly as our spirituality can get, Christina Waltner-Paintner says. Jesus shows us a wonderful attitude toward created things by using water and bread and fish and wine and seeds and earth and creation and birds, foxes and mud as he teaches and shares wisdom, teachings, and the way of transformation. God is in all things, and God is wholly other, meaning that God is both in everything in which is around you here, and God is transcendent, larger than all of this as well. So as we gather in this virtual world of Wild Church, I invite you to pause this recording in a few moments, to go for a walk, if that's a possibility for you, if you're not already outside, or let your fingers do the walking. Excuse me. If you check into, if you're not already there, the Wild Church Alberni group on Alberni Valley United Church Facebook page, there's many pictures there in that group of creation. Some beautiful ones that were just put up this week. So allow your fingers to walk you, be as if they're your feet, and walk through those images. And give attention to one that resonates for you, that draws your attention. I will also, by the time you're seeing this, have posted 2 links to virtual forest walks. So that's another way in which you can, if you're not able to, can just take a pause in your day and be outside. You can pause this video and then click on those. Or you can sit quietly as I step out of the frame and let the video run for at least a couple of minutes. The rain is coming. Take time. Be present and in close connection with the trees, the flowers that are brilliant, with the trees that are blossoming in a way in which they seem so full this year. I don't know if they've ever been so full of blossom, and yet I'm sure that they have been. Allow wherever you are, whatever you see, the sounds to resonate with your being, to offer you a new perspective for life, on life. In the book of Jeremiah, God asks, "Do I not fill heaven and earth?" Wild Church contemplative walking is giving ourselves that time and the permission to pause deeply, to walk into some immense place of creation and experience God. So I invite you, after you press pause, as you begin your contemplative walk, allow a few moments to breathe and connect into your heart. Just take some of those, maybe a deep breath and then several shallower breaths, and set your intention for this time to be present wherever you are and as you can. Release all of your expectations and thoughts about a destination. It's to be present and to allow what arrives to be what arrives. To know that a call may come and it may not, but you will experience the holy. Imagine that as you take a step with your feet or with your fingers, just imagine that your feet are both blessing the ground and being blessed by it. Let your breath be long and slow as you walk. Bring your awareness into this earth monastery that's all around you. Again, notice what draws your attention. Look for what shimmers. Listen for the sounds of life around you. Pause regularly as you walk, simply to receive the gift that is given. Breathe it in. Let it find some space in your heart, and then continue until something else invites you to stop. This is the whole practice. Contemplative walking, contemplative seeing, contemplative listening. Listen, pause, notice what calls your attention. As we do this, we cultivate our ability to really hear the voice of nature speaking. Press pause now, and we'll come back together. Say 5 minutes if you're inside, 15, 20 minutes if you're going for a walk, or longer. It really is up to you in this virtual space. And when we come back, we'll have a moment to share, even though we need to do this virtually, to share that experience. Welcome back. I wonder what you experienced when we gather in this outdoor sanctuary in this first great cathedral. We'll gather around in a circle. Today we would circle this stump that is decaying and providing life to all of the new growth around it. And we share either a word or a thought or something that drew our attention, or sometimes we stand in holy silence for a long time. And in this virtual space, I invite us to put comments in one of the threads on the Wild Church group about your time and your experience. What would you like to share with us? I experienced the resiliency of creation. This creation that has been under stress. And there was a sense that the trees speak very loudly when I'm quiet, and that they have wisdom to offer as we are ready to listen and be present. For if God and God's self is in all of creation, then all of the wisdom that is revealed to us in our sacred text is also in the earth as we listen. So there is this sense of deepening truth in me that creation is our first sacred text. The Bible and Jesus are our second sacred text. So it's as if we hold them in both of our hands. And my thought was we hold them in this position of openness and offering. And then when we bring them together, as we bring them together into prayer position, they are one. Those sacred texts Spirit speaking to us. I long for the time when we can be together and I can hear your experiences, which are so rich and are gift and blessing to me. Join with me and pray for this creation. God most holy, bless creation and bless us as we move into a deeper understanding of our responsibilities to creation and how we can serve it as we come out of, please God, this time of COVID-19. May we take with us the calling to service. Service for one another, which we have been being really, really committed to and responsible for the care of the most vulnerable. May we bring that forward and continually ask ourselves, are we called into service for this God's creation in which God lives and breathes and has God's existence here and now and through all of the cosmos. Amen. Be well, my friends. Be well. Be safe. Find peace and serenity this day, I pray. Amen. Namaste.